American comedian's racist remarks spark walkout at Winnipeg comedy show. Now, this is Rich Voss, who we know. And the funny part out of the gate is that this is not news.
No.
Like, this is, you can see why people are like, you know what? I don't want to go to, like, comedians in America are just like, I don't want to go to Canada and deal with all this shit. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Whereas most comedy club owners, their take is like, listen, I'm not obviously going to be pandering to the one person in the crowd that's complaining all the time, because if I do, no comedians will want to come here. You know, but these guys, they sort of have a thing of, we need to placate that so much that you're kind of not on the side of the comedians.
Yeah.
You know,
and
like,
also this became a news story. I'm sure, like, I mean, dude, how many comedy club shows have you been to where like a bachelorette table is like, fuck this, or they get yelled at? And
oh my God.
No, it's not news.
It is not news that in a weekend of 5 shows, a table who was like loud and drinking and yelling and stuff like that didn't like the show.
Yeah, didn't like getting yelled at by the comic.
No, it's so crazy, right? So basically what he did, an Ojibwe woman says that, so it's like a First Nations person, and she says she was among at least 30 people who walked out on Rumors Comedy Club on Wednesday in Winnipeg on Friday due to a number of racist and homophobic comics they heard on stage. Kelsey Lenigan says she was almost immediately turned off by Rich Voss's set, which included what she called targeted harassment towards a table of Indigenous women. Okay, so my chat groups are blowing up with people sending me this.
Yeah, of course. This is, yeah.
But okay, there's a few different things. The first part is, okay, if you go to a comedy club and you go, hey, we're the comedy club that just has a comedian every night and it's something for everyone. But it's another thing when you have a pretty famous comedian who's been doing comedy for 25 years and most of the people there are his audience.
Yeah. I mean, clearly not these ones.
But the moral of the whole story is,
although I would say with something like Rumors, because it's like in Winnipeg, probably I would say less than 50% are there specifically for him.
right?
I would guess.
So there is a bit
like
of that.
This is
but
more of a
you can
generic
still
club.
say, listen, if you are going to a comedy club and you're very sensitive about certain things,
don't
look, sure, but just look at the comedian who's there. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Like, imagine me going to a concert and then Insane Clown Posse's playing and then I get covered in pop and I'm like, I'm writing articles like, I went to this concert. I have the right to go to watch a musical artist without being covered in Faygo soda.
Yeah.
And you go, well, did you look up who's, that's
on me?
Oh, so I can't just go to a venue that's advertising a specific comedian playing and I have to see what he does?
Yeah. You know what's funny too is that comedy forever was one size fits all, and then they got rid of one size fits all.
Not when people are famous though.
But I'm saying they got rid of it in the sense of one size fits all comedy, where they go like, look, if you're a specific thing, like, and you want a specific thing, that now exists for comedy.
Okay.
Whereas it used to just be like, you show up and here's the comic and that's it. Like they might have a different weekend, but like there's something for you. You just showed up, like you said, on the wrong fucking night, and then you're complaining. But the only thing is like it was a drunk, belligerent table. He's making comments about them being drunk. They happen to be First Nations.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, you're saying this because we're Indigenous. And he's like, no, I'm saying this because you're a drunk, belligerent table who happens to be Indigenous.
Yeah.
But that's not like why I'm yelling at you.
And it is possible he doesn't necessarily know the intricacies of how sensitive the, First Nation stuff is.
One of his big things is he goes, oh, something about like, he made some joke about like, oh, if what was that, at a flea market or like a talent show? He goes, you guys would be making dream catchers. And I was saying, it's like, that's like you see a table of fucking Jewish people, like Carolines, you see it, and you go, oh, you guys probably, if there was a talent show, you guys would be making bagels. And they're like, I never.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's in terms of fucking, that's like nothing.
Nothing that crazy.
Nothing.
No, it's nothing that crazy. But that native stuff is very, very sensitive there, right? And there is something to said about, obviously you just handle things a little differently sometimes when you if you do those kind of First Nations jokes anywhere in America, it's like nothing. Like whereas Canada, it's like it's
the equivalent of a race. It would be like whatever.
It'd be like doing a black
is.
joke in the George Floyd peak, right? It just is a little like more sensitive, but whatever. Yeah. You still can do whatever you want. But the bottom line is, if you go to a club and it's like, hey, there's 10 comics on the bill, like in the city or whatever, right? I get not that I agree with, but if you want to go and you go, this club, like all the comics are just fucking this and that, I don't like that club or whatever. But it's another thing when it's like their name's on the marquee, it's their weekend, and you go, this guy's here all weekend long.
Yeah.
And then you go to some so-and-so's show that's their fucking thing, and then you have the nerve
and
to
then
be
you're interrupting the show.
And then you're interrupting the show.
Like, nobody said, they're like, oh, we were just minding our business, politely enjoying the show, and then he saw that we were indigenous and started targeting us for that. Like, that's not what happened.
No.
They're like, we were interrupting the show. And he has a thing,
which
too,
we've all seen a million times.
But also, Voss has a thing where he says to the security, he says, if people interrupt, don't do anything.
Which I thought was interesting, yeah.
Well, he
does a lot of crowd work.
He does a lot of crowd work.
I watched him do, 40 minutes of crowd work. That's even more so. Imagine going to a comedian that, like, kind of their whole thing is crowd work and being mad that, like, talking shit about people in the audience. Yeah. Like, kind of the whole deal.
For sure. Absolutely. But
I don't, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm always like, I like the idea that the security gets the show in order. I mean, I do like whatever 10 minutes of crowd work, but mostly I do my act.
So does most people who are there trying to watch the show.
They're watching the show, want the security to be like, hey, shut up or we're kicking you out.
Yeah, like...
When I toured with Steve-O, he kicked 8 people out of his theater show within the first, like, minute.
Really?
Yeah, people came out and people were yelling and stuff like that. He kind of started, they wouldn't stop. He goes, you're out. Someone's up, you're out. It was like 10 people were kicked out in the first minute, and then everyone's just like, zip.
Funny too, because they're like, man, Steve-O's the coolest, and then like 10 minutes later he goes, I hate Steve-O. I did not cool.
But to me, that's why you want security to kick them out, because there's nothing worse than like being on stage and being like, all right, get him the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, you're out.
You're not the cool, funny guy
you
anymore.
Can't, it's hard, yeah, you want to be having fun. You don't want to be enforcing rules of the club. 100%. You know what I mean?
And he, for him, he's just like, yeah, I'm so good at crowd work where he fucking, I don't want one. One, he's like, I'm gonna say crazy shit, and I don't want you to stop it. We're gonna make a fucking wild house.
That's correct, yeah. So the American comedian also made a joke about hoping the women would get ticketed for driving under the influence on the way home, she recalled. Which, again, if you have a table of really drunk people at a show heckling and you being like, I hope these guys get... He didn't even say, I hope you die going home. He goes, I hope these people get a ticket.
Yeah, get a DUI.
But like, that is such... out of what you could have said, that's pretty tame.
But again, more importantly, he didn't say, I hope you get a ticket because you're indigenous.
No.
Because I hope you get a ticket because you're drunk and disruptive.
Right. So CBC,
they're the ones who are being like, oh, this is because of our heritage. And you're like, no, it's not.
Well, I think that what should have happened is Will Smith should have came on the stage and punched him out.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically you have a situation where the headline could read, area woman didn't like show. It's like, imagine this, you going to a movie and just being like, they get to write an article where it's like, not my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, goddamn, if that happened every single time.
But comedy is really the only thing that happened. Like, there's no way that people would ever, go to a rap, like they would ever watch a rap show and then have the person, screaming profanities, I'm going to kill this person and that person. And then there's no way these places would write this about a rap show. It's only comedy that gets this treatment.
Like, imagine like fucking some some Puerto Ricans from like Brooklyn are like rappers and they or Dominicans or whatever. And
yeah.
They go to Winnipeg to do a show and they're just dropping the N-bomb nonstop because that's what they do.
Dropping N-bomb or F-bomb.
And they're just like, they can't say that. I'm offended.
Yeah, there's no way they would do that article. So, Rumors Nightclub has an ethical responsibility to ensure that people are safe from insensitive racial ambushes. And this is the case where with comedy clubs, it's like, well, they have what they actually have is a like choices. You know how they say there's no right or wrong, there's only like choices. And you have the choice. The bottom line is, I'll bet you a lot of people at that club were there because they're like, oh, Rich Voss is here, he says wild shit, that'll be fun, right?
Of course.
So if you say, oh, by the way, you're not going to see anything wild at this show, it's like, well, yeah, a lot of you can be a different kind of comedy club, and then some other club will be like, yeah, we're the one that we stand behind our comedians. And also you can say, like, no one does wild racial stuff, and then like, if it's not going good, most people are just like, fuck, that I didn't, like, obviously you hoped it would kill.
Oh, yeah.
No one wants to walk 30 people, but sometimes it is what it is. You're in a hole.
I mean,
everyone's been there.
Another thing is I want to talk to the people who went there for Rich Voss. What did you think? They're like, probably like, it was the best.
They're like, oh, that show was hilarious. He kicked a bunch of people out.
He just fucking got in a fight with a bunch of drunk people.
How many times have you've like some woman got kicked out and you got in a big fight and she was offended. Remember that Jewish lady that was offended with you? And just like everyone else that came up to us after was like, oh, that's so hilarious how you handled that woman.
Yeah, of course. Always.
Yeah, I'm sure some of these lines were killing, right?
I don't even know how this gets in the fucking CBC.
But also,
how does this get to be in the news?
Because everything.
But I'm saying, what's like the order of operations?
I'll tell you what happened. She posted on Facebook and stuff, and it went like semi-viral, and then someone tagged CBC, and they go, yes. But they go, so when they say the comedy club has an ethical responsibility to make sure people are safe, right? But you don't have any whatsoever responsibility to look up who you're going to see.
Yeah.
It's like the responsibility is like entirely on the artist to be like, hey, maybe someone who doesn't know me is going to come watch my show, so I should change it just in case that happens.
I guess what I'll say is these people their baseline belief is that there should be no racial attacks at comedy shows, period. So they're like, I'd say they'd be like, well, I shouldn't even have to because that shouldn't
who
exist.
gets to decide what's an attack? Like a lot of it's like joking around.
It's, if anything, they were the aggressors.
If anything, they were the aggressors, but the thing is, they have all their rules, but you go, if a bunch of people were friends and joking around and, making like, all this fucking Guido or whatever, did they say that's okay for friends to do it? And they're like, yes. Okay, well, why? So if that's fine with friends, most people, especially in front of their fans, like that's the dynamic you have where you're like, it's kind of a good crowd is like your friends.
I'm sure Voss has had a million instances where he goes out, makes fun of someone for their because this whole thing is the ball breaking, right?
Yeah,
so he makes fun of them for their thing, whatever their thing happens to be, and they love it. They go, oh man, he was talking about this, and they're like, it was so funny.
Right.
But, sometimes you run into fucking...
And again, these people can have a bad time and he could, change it or not change it or whatever. But what the crazy part is that now the CBC, who knows what this comedy club owner actually thinks, but they get ambushed by, hey, there's an article coming out.
Oh, they made the dumbest... Their way they handled this could not have been worse.
No, I don't think that was the right way to handle it.
Because actually, people, you'll get way more earned, like business and
by saying cool or be like, we don't give a shit.
Yeah, we don't give a shit. And people will be like, oh, that's a cool comedy club. I'm not trying to please every single person.
Was not the move for
Dude,
them.
you see what he said?
It's nuts what he said.
Fucking, he goes, what is it? If we have comedians, he goes, if we have comedians come here, these are certain things that you can't touch base on. These are areas that shouldn't be talked about. Oh, no, sorry. That's what the person said. The fucking, what is it?
He says the comedians.
Oh, he advises comedians against jokes that would be very offensive. This is the booker.
Yeah, I know.
Because I advise comedians against jokes that could be.
Can you fucking imagine?
Including sexually explicit. Do you show up at a comedy club and the booker goes, yo, just so you know, sex stuff off the table. You go, all right, that's fucking 90% of every comedian's act.
What are you talking about? She's like, dude, if I show up to a comedy club, he goes, by the way, no race stuff, sex stuff, gender stuff. And you go, what?
And there's no shortage.
Like, no, that's not what I do.
But Canada and everywhere has no shortage of those comedians. Like, you can find some guy who will gladly sleepwalk through his act from the 90s.
Then don't book this guy. Don't book Voss.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, this guy is saying, and you're like, those guys exist. Like, there's these squeaky clean comedians who most
but they don't draw. None of them have audiences. The bottom line is they want to bring in these people with audiences, and most of the people, like, I would say, 70% of the people that have audiences, like, their fucking comedy isn't like corporate clean.
Yeah, for sure.
Because no one wants to watch that unless they're being forced to at their office barbecue.
Again, and I'm sure Rumors brings in some big dry bar guy. As one of their weekends. But I know dry bar guys, and a lot of those dry bar guys are actually dirty. They just did one dry bar set. They lied to you.
Yeah, but a lot of those dry bar guys did one 20-minute set clean, and then now they're back to not being dry bar guys.
Yeah.
Because they had a good place to do a special, So they go, he says, this is the best part. He goes, afterwards, this is the owner of the comedy club. He goes, he tried to educate Voss on how his jokes were perceived by the audience and says the comedians seemed to have no idea how offensive they were. And in a culture so quick to cancel people, I decide that I want to educate people. And it's like, He's been doing comedy for 30 years.
Oh, that would be he probably must have been just like
getting educated by the comedy club owner after your set. And first of all, everyone's heard all the arguments. There's no new argument where, you've been doing comedy for 30 years. You walk a table one night, you're touring all over the place, right? You do 7 sets in a weekend. You do one set where, a table of drunk people gets mad and walks out and says you're offensive, right? And then the owner comes up to you and he's like, hey, sit down. Like, this would be a teachable moment. Yeah. You're just like, what?
Ryan, we got to talk.
No, I'm not, I'm not here to cancel you. I'm just a teachable moment. I know that you've released 10 hours of comedy in your career, but that 11th hour is going to be a little different, isn't it?
I've been watching a lot of comedy. I watch in my line of work, and the stuff that people like is the stuff that doesn't make them upset.
Yeah. Well, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where now, if they go out and do CBC articles, by the way, we're the safe thing, that guy's been reprimanded, we won't have him back again. It's like, now you're going to get more of the crybabies. Dude, if you have a business like a shop or something like that, right? The old adage where 20% of your clients are going to give you 80% of the trouble? Mm-hmm. Those are not the people to placate to. They're the
people you want to get rid of.
You want to get rid of.
Yeah, so you want to be like, never come back here.
Why are you running a comedy club and you want to attract the people that are going to complain? You go, hey, you can hold me to it. There's never gonna have that happen again. Well, guess what? It's gonna happen again.
Of course it's
and now it's gonna be worse because you've pledged allegiance to. You're never gonna hear about it.
Honestly,
I was not the move, right?
Even some of the
crazy.
Even some of like the not cleaner, but like kind of more bitchy comedy clubs that I know of still would not do this.
No,
like if the CBC was like, hey, did you have a comment? They'd be like, yeah, I don't know, shit happens.
We don't censor a comment.
We gave them a refund. I don't know. They can. There's fucking clean comedy shows. They can go see.
Well, they don't want a refund. They've said they weren't even. They want him to be banned from the country kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And what do they want? They want a fucking like a code of conduct, an official code of. So then the comedians show up and go, hey, can you just read the code of conduct? Just initial there, and then a signature there and a date just to confirm.
What other business though? It's like, what other business that someone that doesn't do the thing, doesn't know anything about the thing, is giving the comedy club rules for what that they could do? It's just like this bizarro world where they have this, amplification of any sort. You're like, yeah, this is the whole thing is woman didn't like show.
Yeah. Just a group at a table.
Drunk, belligerent, heckling woman.
Yes.
Also wasn't a fan of the jokes.
Yeah. But again, it's like, I wasn't there. But my guess is he was probably just doing his thing. It probably wasn't being racist or anything. And then they were just being fucking belligerent. And that's like when it started. They 100%. Like, I'm sure that comedy club is like, yeah, we probably normally would have kicked that table out. But except for that Rich Voss asked us not to. Like, their probably policy is to kick them out.
Yeah, maybe maybe that's not the best policy. Well, No,
you can't tell the comedian. If the comedian goes, I want to fucking.
I really think that, how social media companies a little bit, when it's coming to censoring and not censoring, they're like, hey, can we just have laws so we can not be involved in it almost? You know what I mean? I don't want to be like the arbiter. Some of them at least will say that as an argument. I feel that as a comedian, it's like, I don't want someone that's like talking the whole time and ruining the show. But I also like, hey, just be a comedy club and have, rules or whatever. You know what I mean?
Rules
the
are
same as like a bar.
Not funny.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but like if you're a bar, you're like, and it's and you have a show or whatever, right? And someone's walking around punching people in the face, like I'm the band on stage, like. Yeah, probably the bar should kick that person out, but I just don't really. Why is it like my job?
Yeah,
it's like job? If you have people that like won't shut up and they're ruining it for everyone else, it kind of is just. I'm not this. I don't want to be the bouncer at my own show.
It's not, 100%. Again, not cool for the comedian to be kicking people out.
It just isn't cool.
It's just not cool. Rules aren't cool. It's not cool to be kicking people out.
Rules aren't cool, man.
Rules aren't cool, man.
Anyway, shout out Rich Voss. Yeah. Thank you for watching that clip, supporting the channel. If you like The Boyscast, there's a new episode every week at patreon.com/TheBoyscast.
That's patreon.com/TheBoyscast.